Hello and welcome to a new series on this channel where we talk about the most important attributes for each individual position on this game. Going to start off this series with defenders. Hope you guys enjoy this series. Subscribe to see more. We're going to go through goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders and attackers. Obviously episode 1 will be defenders. Goalkeepers is a bit boring for episode 1, so we may squeeze it in at the end here. If not, we'll do a whole new episode for it. But I hope you guys enjoy. Subscribe so you don't miss more of this. Leave a like for this series so far. And yeah, let's get on with episode 1. Hello and welcome to a new series talking about attributes here on Defenders. Episode 1 will obviously be about Defenders. Now ignore the save, ignore what players we've got here. This is just my existing save on Twitch. You can watch it down below, description, details there for my live streams. We are live pretty much every week or a few times a week at least. So please guys go and follow over there if you are enjoying my content or want to see more of me and see me play this live. Now obviously onto the players here. Now we are Norwich. It doesn't matter what positions or doesn't matter what players you have, sorry. The attributes all stay the same for what sort of roles you want. So let's start off with right back. Let's go across the back four. In fact, before we start our back four, how about if you guys are new around here, then think about subscribing. We're very, very close to 1,000 subs, under 100 away as we currently stand. If you guys want to click that subscribe button down below, can barely speak, and hit a notification button, be massively appreciated. We are trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year. We do FM content, football content, FIFA content, gaming content, pretty much all type of content on this channel. Hope you guys are enjoying it so far. If you are new, please think about subscribing. Now let's get on to the actual video that you came here to watch. So onto our right back slot here. Now obviously we're going to talk about offensive and defensive minded fullbacks. Now for me, I want a fullback to be getting up and down the pitch with as much pace and prowess as what you kind of want them to be. So for me, I always go for a fullback attack. Now the roles here, they are highlighted of what's the most important aspects of your players are. However, some of these that are highlighted aren't really that important for me. So I'm going to talk about what we need in terms of technicals, mentals and physicals. Obviously each attributes are split into 3 categories. Technicals, on the ball, sort of marking, passing, dribbling, crossing, as you guys can see. Mentals is all about up here, sort of composure, concentration, decision making, determination, work rate, stuff like that. And physicals is obviously your strength, stamina, your pace, and other things around that aspect. So let's start off with technicals. For me, it depends on age. It does depend on age and developments. There is another video on my channel soon. We'll talk about potential ability and current ability now to utilise that. But in terms of currently what we're looking at for a best role for a right back, ignore Max Aaron's like I say. For me, the best right backs will have good crossing, good dribbling, and good technique. Now you might think marking, tackling, and passing, they're sort of secondary. If your crossing is 15 plus, and your marking is, I think always for me, marking, tackling and positioning there, a little triangle in this role here. If they're all above 11 or 12, you have a very, very solid fullback because defensively, fullbacks aren't always the best in this game. It would be quite hard to find an all-rounded defender. So I'll always look to go for 12 plus on marking, tackling and positioning, as long as your crossing is good. If your crossing is bad, then look for a better defender because obviously they have to balance themselves out. If you want to find an all-rounder, maybe 12 crossing or 12 marking, it can be good, but it will never reach endgame because you want an elite player in one of those abilities, either attacking or defending, in my opinion this is. So for me, I'll always look for a worse defender with 12 marking, 12 positioning, 12 tackling, and an 18 crossing, than an 18 tackling but a 7 crossing. Because for me, going forwards, fullbacks add so much into this game. First touch technique and passing aren't too important. They're not the most important aspects of the role, but always get them as best as you can. They're sort of the secondary level of attributes in my opinion. In terms of mentals, the most important ones for me are composure, decision making, determination if you want to improve your player if they're young. If they're older, determination is not too important. And always for me, work rate. Work rate is very important for a fullback. If you guys do know football, or you're not a massive football fan anyway, I'll explain it. Fullbacks, for me, on this game, I like to get them up and down the wing. And if you have no work rate, they're not going to do that. So simple as work rate there is very important. 14 plus or 13 plus in my opinion gets them up and down the pitch. In my eyes, the higher the work rate, the better the player and the more they're going to run up and down the pitch if their stamina is decent. We'll talk about physical soon. If their stamina is good though, their work rate comes in handy. Positioning and off the ball, I like them to be balanced. Off the ball is more offensive, positioning is more defensive, if you can read here. Off the ball here is the attribute reflects the player's ability to move when not in possession of the ball, making themselves available to receive a pass in a dangerous position. And positioning is able to put themselves into place to basically read a tackle and read an attacking situation, or a defensive situation, sorry. So for me, off the ball is creating space, and positioning is basically marking your man or anticipating where the ball is going to go and lining yourself up before the ball even gets there. So for me, those two are very important. We're looking at 13 plus overall for them. Decision making, once again, basically, with or without the ball, are you going to run off down the wing and leave your man behind you? Are you going to pass to the right guy when the player's in space? That sort of thing. For me, it's not massively important. I do think composure and anticipation are much more noticeable and usable this year than decision making. I feel like that match engine is good enough for decision making to be probably round 12 plus and not be a massive issue. But for me, in terms of mentals, the main ones in order, probably go for work rate, off the ball, positioning, anticipation, and then composure. Now, concentration can come in handy if you are a more defensive fullback. For me, for an offensive fullback though, concentration hasn't really been an issue. However, if your concentration is single figures, I would avoid buying them, if you are a top tier side. If you're a fourth tier of football side, these do change, but obviously the importance still stays the same, just the numbers are different. But if you're a top tier side and looking at a player with 8 concentration and 9 work rate, avoid. Unless he's 5-star potential and you know he can get up to those levels. But it's very unlikely. Mentals are quite hard to come by in terms of improvements. Like I said, we'll talk about those improvements soon. In terms of physical aspects, it's pretty straightforward for a fullback role. Acceleration and pace is very, very important. This year, pace on FM21 is so important that I would say if they're below 14, I wouldn't really go to get them. I think pace on the fullback is probably one of the most important aspects this year. Agility, it is highlighted, but for me, not massively important. I would say if you've got great pace, agility kind of comes with it. If their agility is low, I wouldn't be put off by it. And stamina, once again, of course, always look to get that high stamina because, like I say, up and down the pitch, you want a player to run for 90 minutes. If their stamina's a bit low, then it's okay. Obviously, pair that with natural fitness. If their natural fitness is quite low as well, you've got to be careful of playing them constantly because they can't recover as well. But stamina and natural fitness are important for me. I would look for ideally 13 plus. However, in development, you can obviously train their stamina. It's a bit of a waste to do that because you obviously want more aspects of the game you can notice, like technical aspects to improve on. But it's never a bad thing to get more stamina on your fullbacks, I'd say. In terms of player traits, I do like get forward whenever possible. It is handy. As long as you've got a player with high work rate and stamina and positioning, they can get back in time to defend. However, if you have got a bad defender and they're getting forward whenever possible, the chances of them getting back are quite minimal, and your right hand side or left hand side could be open 9 times out of 10. So just be careful with that and be aware that if you have got a get forward whenever possible trait, either know to train it to get rid of it, or to make sure that you're aware that your right back or your right centre back may be under pressure a lot of times. Now, on to centre-backs here, and there are a couple of roles. Obviously, we've got no-nonsense, central defender, and ball player. In my eyes, we'll only talk about central defender and ball player because no-nonsense doesn't really need much explaining, really. It's basically the same as central defender with a little bit less mental responsibility. So let's go on to ball playing defender here, and we're going to talk about our most important attributes. Now, obviously, for me, as a ball player, the most important aspect is passing vision. First touch and technique, but for me, passing and vision are the most important. If you want to be a ball player, I would look for at least 12 or 13 plus passing or vision. For some reason, I don't really like going below 11. I feel like it's kind of pointless. If you're going below 11, you may as well stay as a normal centre defender and have them passing the ball when they can. But as a dedicated ball playing defender, you've got to go for that higher passing and vision. If you do see it there, if they're familiar with a central defender more than a ball player, but they have 15 passing and 12 vision, retrain them to a ball player. If your passing is really, really good, always utilise it. It's definitely in the game for a reason. It helps your team create possession and create chances. So for me, passing and vision are the two most important aspects for a ball player. First touch and technique comes as a secondary sort of aspect for me, but if they are terrible, if their first touch is a 4, then they're going to be able to control the ball to pass it, are they? So you kind of use your own brain when you come into a ball playing defender. Now, they're obviously very similar to a central defender. Here you can see the only thing that are minimised are first touch, tackling, first touch, technique, passing and vision. So they're very, very, very similar. Composure can come in handy for a ball player, but it's also important for a central defender there. But in terms of defenders, once again, for all defenders, I look for the 3 most important ones: marking, tackling, and positioning. The little triangle here, I'll always keep an eye out for it. If one of them lacks a lot, I would tend to avoid that centre-back. Say you've got a 14 marking, 16 tackling, and 8 positioning. There is no point in having a good marker or a tackler if he's never near the attacker. That's what I always say. So I will always try and find a nice balanced triangle there, something that always keeps up with each other, and one aspect isn't massively above the rest. If actually, to be fair, if you've got 14 marking and 14 positioning but 20 tackling, that's even better. But by it massively ahead, I mean, you don't want one massively below. You don't want one in single figures, because that is ideally not great. Obviously, it depends if you're non-league or you're lower league football. Then learn what sort of numbers you need for your league. But for a top tier team, you don't want a single figure in marking, positioning or tackling. Now, jumping, reaching, heading hasn't been too important for me this year. I've got to say, you do like a good header of the ball as a centre back. You'd like for set pieces to be able to be confident your defenders can get in the way. Obviously, height can come into that, but for me, I like a heading and jumping reach. If you've got a 5'7" with 8 jumping reach, don't play him centre back. It's kind of silly. But if you have got a 6'4" centre back with 10 jumping reach, then he's 6'4". He's probably going to win the ball a lot of times. Plus, he's a defender, so he uses defensive aspects like positioning, anticipation, and bravery to get ahead of their strikers and to win the ball back there. In terms of mentals, now centre backs tend to have great mentals anyway. We've discussed positioning, but apart from positioning, I would say concentration, bravery, anticipation, and decision making are the 4 ones you want to look out for. Aggression is very, very nice, but it's not the be all and end all. Composure, once again, isn't massively important. If your composure is low, just stick it on a no nonsense if you really feel like you have to. But composure normally for centre backs aren't low enough to really make a difference. Leadership is always a great role to have. It's not in terms of how good your player is, but you want a leader in the back to organise that defence. Stuff like that does happen behind closed doors at FM in terms of leaders. If you have no leaders at the back, your team can be very, very sloppy. So you want at least one of your defenders with a high leadership to kind of control that defensive line, even if it's not the captain. In terms of teamwork, once again, similar to leadership, work rate, it's not massive. I don't look at a centre-back and go, oh, he's only got 11 work rate, I can't use him. I will always just go, okay, he's got 11 work rate, he's not going to run around or do too much, but he's a great defender. I would put that very, very low down in terms of what I demand from my centre-backs. But overall, I would say, like I said, the 4 main stats in the mental area I've discussed. And I think overall, if you have them players good in that role, but lacking a little bit elsewhere, it's not too important. Some of these I don't even look for. Obviously, flair, I don't care for. Off the ball, I don't care for. Like I say, aggression's not massively important for me. Vision, I do not even look at. But stuff that aren't highlighted, like teamwork and leadership and work, kind of work rate, but not really leadership and teamwork, are worth always looking out for, even though they aren't highlighted. Now, finally, in terms of physical, it depends what sort of defensive line you're playing. But for me, I always look for a defender with 12 plus pace and acceleration. If they're below that, I wouldn't put a higher defensive line because they'll get caught out a lot of times by pace of attackers. In terms of stamina and natural fitness, talking about the fullback being very important. Stamina and natural fitness isn't too important. Centre-backs don't tend to move up the pitch too much unless you have a wacky tactic that is needed for high stamina and high natural fitness. The only issue where that comes in is in terms sort of 4 games in a week or 3 games in a week. You may have to rest in one of those games, but if you have a good training regime and set up very, very well, then stamina and natural fitness doesn't come into effect too much. I've never once had to sub off a centre-back because you've been knackered on the pitch. So take that as you will. Agility and balance isn't too important for me. I don't look at it and go, I must get a centre-back of great agility. It does come in handy if you're obviously having a nimble centre-back against a tricky winger or a tricky striker. Well, they do come in handy. However, if you've got a great tackler or a marker or a positioning and a big lump at centre-back, they can always just single-handedly dominate a striker by using their strength, which is important. I do find strength very, very important this year. I think if you can bully a striker, then your centre-backs have a very, very successful game. That matched with some good pace and acceleration makes a complete centre-back in my eyes. I think physicals this year are very, very important. If you have a good tackler and a great... Look at Van Dijk, a massive lump of a defender that's great at reading the game. He just controls every single striker he comes up against. That's kind of what you want to base your centre-backs on. You can obviously add more of a ball player in there, but for me, looking for a more strong core at the back, you want a tall, strong, kind of quick 12-plus centre-back, and that's when you really notice your clean sheets coming in quick and fast. In terms of player traits, now, if you have a bring ball out of defence, you may want to have a ball player. You don't tend to get those sort of traits unless you have good passing and vision. But if you have got a bring ball out of defence trait on and your passing is 9 and your vision is 2, then make sure to train it out. You do not want your centre-backs that are bad on the ball having an off on the ball trait. You don't want that. That is a recipe for disaster. These other ones here aren't too important. Marks opponent tightly. Now, if you have good anticipation and good tackling, you won't give away too many fouls. However, if you're marking tightly and you have terrible tackling and terrible decision making, you'll give away a lot of penalties. So just be aware of that. Look at your traits, read your traits, and match them with what attributes you think they will be. Now, if you use your brain and think, you're more than likely right. FM do tend to do things very, very well in terms of matching the traits with what attributes come in handy. So like I say, mark opponent tightly. What do you think will happen? Need good decision making to lunge into a tackle when it's the right time. Anticipation to anticipate when the ball's going to come, and good tackling as well, and positioning to be in the right side of the defender when he's marking him. If you use them, if they're lacking, then get rid of that trait. Stuff like that really does come in handy when you're using your brain for FM. It's all the information's there. It's just a puzzle to piece them all together, and that's what this video is kind of trying to help you guys to do. But that is pretty much it for the back four there. We've also discussed our fullbacks and discuss our centre-backs. We'll probably stick our goalkeepers in an individual video just so you guys can know where to go when you want to see a good goalkeeper. But overall, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the series so far, or enjoying this sort of idea of this series. If you are new around here, please subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed it so far. Leave a comment of what your attributes for you, what your most important attributes are in your opinion for your roles as well. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you all later.